The last couple of days, we've been talking about five elements and especially the generating cycle. Today, we want to delve a little bit deeper and connect it back to the emotions of these elements. Okay. So all of us have these elements, have these emotions with us, okay, in varying degrees and depending on situation. So anger, passion, that's wood, that joy, that mania with the fire, that worry, that sympathy with the earth energy, that sadness and compassion with the metal, and that fear and wisdom with the water. All of us have those things in varying degrees. And in different situations, different ones come out. And some of us, we're going to have different tendencies. So some of us tend to be more of one element versus another. So how do we use this kind of in everyday life? I mean, I talk about these things, not just in the theoretical sense, but like, how do we apply this? How do we use this? Because these are things that we experience in every single moment, right? So let's kind of re-examine and let's go back to the top with the wood element, okay? So with the wood, it's about anger and passion. So some of us, we feel we don't have enough. Others feel like we have too much. And we're always trying to find that balance, depending on the situation. Like maybe you feel like you have too much when someone cuts you off on the freeway. And maybe you feel like you have too little when you're trying to get something you really want to get done and it's hard to get focused. So in Chinese medicine, we look at, you can treat the element with the element, okay? Whether that's too much or too little, we can do that. And we can use the element before. If the tendency is if you have too little of it, you can use the element before to help you generate. So in practical terms, that means if you have a lack of focus, if you have trouble like focusing in on things, getting things done, you can nourish your wood. You can try to increase your wood through working on your wood element, working on that passion and that anger, really connect with it. Or you can also work on strengthening and working on the water, right? The reason behind that focus and that passion. So, I mean, wood is really about, part of it is competitiveness. It's about honing in, goal-oriented. So, in these days, it's difficult when you have a lot on your plate. And so your focus is like on 10 different things. So if you're focusing on 10 different things, you're not really focused, okay? So the wood element really thrives when you're able to just say, okay, in this hour, I'm gonna work on this. Next hour, I'm gonna work on this. It works a lot better. And also if you have it planned out. Wood is really good. It's like a train on a rail system. Okay, it's really good when it follows the rails. When it go off the rails, literally, it's not so good. Okay, so how you want to do that is just look at all the things you have to do, and find one thing that you want to do, and do it. Get it done, and then focus. Be more. So you have to have a more linear mindset, and for some of us, that's difficult because maybe our more preferred element is like water. We want to meander, we want to check things out. Well, that's quite difficult to do if you want to get things done. So when you want to embrace that wood energy, another way is really get in touch with the anger, like really find that like burning like anger and then use that to help you focus. Going back to this Michael Jordan documentary that they did on ESPN recently, like he would make up stories about what people do to him to give him that anger, like that slight that someone may have said, but they didn't really say it to him. Like, but he would look at any tiny amount of disrespect as more fuel for his anger to be competitive and to try to dominate you. And so that's really the essence of wood in a way, to find that edge and to find that focus to propel you to get whatever it is that you want to get done. Okay, so that's a bit more about wood, and so it's quite it's quite about being simple. It's like simplify, focus, find that one thing. Okay, so doing that energy punch exercise when you're focusing in, that's a really good one to sort of help you hone in and focus as well. Okay, so let's move on to the next element, fire. Okay, so fire is about joy and mania. Okay, both sides. Most of us think mania is not great. It's crazy, right? But it's also part of us as human beings or human experience. Sometimes we're going to experience joy. Sometimes we're going to experience depression. Sometimes we're going to experience anxiety. These are normal range of emotions. Obviously, there's a certain range that is out of normal, okay, and that you want to get taken care of. But most of us feel these things, especially in the moment. So that's the energy of fire, is it tends to be a little bit scattered. But think about it as it's really about someone who is leading by their heart, right? And they're trying to keep their heart open. So in every moment, that could be very different. So in some moments, they really feel that intense joy and they really want to go with it. In another moment, they feel some sadness, some depression, and then go with that. So if you don't have a lot of fire, you may not understand this energy of fire. But if you do, you want to also appreciate it, because in our society, we tend to poo-poo some of this fire because it's a little bit out of control. And most of us were being taught to keep our emotions in check. And, you know, for most cases, we kind of want to, right? You want to be able to let it out when you want to let it out and be able to kind of keep it level when the situation doesn't really call for your fire to really come out full blast. You want to be able to moderate it a little bit. But really part of that, if you have fire, if you want to connect with that fire, you really want to be in the moment. You really want to lead by your heart, and you want to be okay with some of these emotions coming out, some of these highs and lows of life, and really feeling that flow. So you can, if you feel like you have too much of that fire, we haven't talked about the control cycle yet, okay? But that's 2 elements back, to give you a preview. And so you would use some water to help dampen your fire a little bit. But if you have too little fire, you're struggling with your fire, then you want to, you can treat it with fire, okay? Just be more in the moment, be more in your heart, leading by your heart. You can also work on your wood, okay? When you get that singular focus, when you get in touch with that anger, when you get in touch with that passion, okay? A lot of that's just, that extreme focus is like a laser, and the laser just becomes a spark and it's gonna turn into fire. So you can use both of those things to help you nourish and generate your fire. So I want to talk, we're running a little bit out of time for this chit chat. I don't want to talk too much, but I want to talk about earth last, and then we'll talk more later. In terms of the earth element, okay, it's about nurturing. It's the emotions are worry and sympathy, but it's about nurturing, and it's about being grounded, okay? So earth people tend to take care of others. They tend to be very stubborn as well, in both good and a bad way. They like stability. They like patterns, which is a good thing. But too much of that, of course, it can be a challenge, because then you can't, it's hard to change. Too little of that means there's a lot of instability. So in order to, if you have trouble with your earth, like maybe you have trouble getting moving, if you're looking at like a big change in life, you want to be able to control that earth. Maybe that's more excess earth. So then you want to look 2 elements back, and that'll be more of the wood element to get that focus and get that drive. But if you have too little earth, like you really want to nurture yourself, take care of yourself, slow down, and really literally get in touch with the earth. What I mean by that is like touch the soil, okay? Maybe do some planting, some garden work, yard work, to really get in touch. Take a hike in nature. Be in the mountains. Mountains is a big earth energy. So these things you can do to help nourish your earth. You can also nourish your earth by looking at the element before, which is the fire. Fire generates earth. And that joy, that leading by the heart, that helps you remind yourself that, hey, I got to take care of myself too. So we're going to talk about the metal and the water tomorrow. And then I want to talk about that control cycle that we were talking about in terms of if you have too much of an element. But if you have too little of something, you can use that same element. You can use the element before to do that. And again, like a lot of this is just, as human beings, being able to accept who you are and knowing yourself and being able to use these elements appropriately in the right situations is really key. So thank you very much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed that talk. We will have this also on YouTube later today if you want to review it, as well as, we talked about the generating cycle yesterday and the day before too. So you can look up those chats as well. All right. Thank you for joining us. We will see you tomorrow.